All right, well, we're back here for the second part of our discussion on making grayscale from color. In this part, we're going to go through the steps in making that conversion in Photoshop. And while we're at it, we're going to talk about how to use a little false color to make a shot that's otherwise fairly drab into a grayscale that might be fairly interesting. So let's get on with that. So here we have a shot. This was taken in the Carrizo Plains a year or so ago. I loved this scene in front of me with all of this tumbleweed that was all piled around in front of this wonderful old barn. But there was this high haze in the air that was just enough to kill really good color saturation. But I thought with this texture, the texture of the barn, the texture of the tumbleweed, this could really make a fascinating grayscale image. But it really needs some work. And let's look first at some ways not to do it. I'm going to come over here to the layers palette, and I'm going to make a couple of duplicate layers of it so that we've got some stuff to play with. I'll turn off this top one. I'll visit that a little later. I'm going to leave the original. So here's one possible version of what we could do to make this into a grayscale. Here's one way we can make this into a grayscale. We could go to Image, Adjustments, and we could simply desaturate it. If you recall from the previous PowerPoint, I said don't do that. It's not bad. Personally, I think it's better than the color image, because now that washed out color really isn't bothering us, but now we've got the textural issues here. But I'd like to see it considerably more dramatic than this. So I'm going to leave this. I'm going to go up to our other copy, and I'm going to make one more from it, just in case. Okay, and I'm going to work on this layer. Now, what I would like to do is to create a little bit of false color in here so that I've got something to work with when I make the correction. Since it is all washed out, I'm going to try to go into Image, Adjustments, Hue and Saturation, and I'm going to start out with everything, with the master picked, which is every channel, and I'm going to bring this up. Oh wow, look what's happening to the sky. That's getting interesting. But we kind of overdid it down here. So I'm going to come back here and pick just yellow, and I'm going to drop the saturation just a little into the yellow. And I'm also going to pick reds and see if that has some effect on us. A little bit, not a whole lot. Let me lighten that just a touch. Okay. So now I've got an image that is very different from our real one. Let's see, if I click off of this one, there's our original shot. The one I just added the saturation to. So now we have something perhaps we can work with. While I'm at it, though, I'm going to make a few more changes. I would like to bring out a little bit of difference in some of these areas. So I'm going to make a duplicate layer of this. And now what I want to do is pick up a little bit of tonality changes. So I'm going to go to Curves. All I'm caring about is the tumbleweed. I don't care too much about them, although I like what that just did to the barn. You know what? I'm going to do this twice. I'm going to take this, make a layer mask, invert that mask with a Control-I. Now I've got the black mask. I want to use a white brush. Set down, maybe to 50%. I want to lighten the shadow in that barn because I liked what happened when I did that last thing. Okay, cool. And while I'm at it, I'm going to lighten a little bit of this highlight in here. Maybe some of this little flower. Since I created a fair amount of contrast in that layer, or in that curves use, that one doesn't work. It's able to hold a bit. Now with a little bit of highlight, and I'm going to go in with my burn tool just because it's fast. What I ought to be doing is doing this with the overlay. But I'm going to darken a couple of areas in here just a little. I've got to get rid of that layer mask. So if I click off and back on it, you'll notice the bounding box, the framework, is no longer around this layer mask, which means I'm no longer working on the mask. I'm now working right on the layer. So I can do a little bit of burning. I can add a little bit to those shadows. Now, I would really like to have these little flowers stand out in front. So, I'm going to take these two layers. I'm going to turn off my original. Turn off that. And now what I want to do is blend these two layers, because these are what was being used with the layer mask. I want to blend these two layers. These were the ones I was using with the layer mask. So I'm going to go to Layer, Merge Visible. Those are the only two with the little eyeball on them. So those are the only two that will merge. So those two now have become one layer. And what I want to do now is make a duplicate of that. I want to build a little more contrast in this. I want to see these flowers, these little yellow flowers, pop out a little more. So I'm going to make this a luminosity mask. A layer, rather. I'm going to come up to Image, Adjustments, Black and White. And now I want those little yellow flowers to really stand out some more. And I want the rest of the stuff around it to go darker. That's so when I burn these in, or when I reveal these with the mask, the background drops behind it. So I'm going to say, okay, that's good enough for right now. And now I'm going to make that into a layer mask. And I want to bring those flowers out a little. Another inverted mask. Okay. Now, I'm going to flatten these two again. And now I want to do one other thing, and this is truly a correction. And I'm also going to show you, because I can see a problem here. I have a mask, or what appears to be a mask, that didn't quite work at some point. So I want to make a duplicate of this layer. Oh, come on. I am going to make this another luminosity layer. And I'm going to bring that blue and cyan way down. Now, I need to zoom in on this because I need to fix a problem, and since it's one that you may end up with having yourself now and then, I want you to see how it's done. See this area here? I do not know what I did to create that. It certainly wasn't intentional. Oh, yes, I do. It was when I had the brush going here to lighten up the barn. Well, the good news is I'm going to be able to fix that. I'm going to pick up a clone stamp tool and I'm going to set it to darken. Remember, if I tell any of the brush tools to darken, it will only paint on its own color or something lighter. So I have an incredible advantage here. The eaves under that barn roof are bigger, or are darker rather, than this blue sky. So I'm not going to paint on that. And I can do the same thing here. Now, I've gotten rid of that, and I'm ready to go to my grayscale conversion now. Remember, here is my luminosity layer. I'm going to, one more time, flatten this. No, I'm not. I'm going to merge these two layers. Now, remember, there's where we started. There's where we are now. Now we're going to go to black and white. So I'm going to make one more layer of these just so I've got things separated. So these two layers are identical. And now I'm going to leave this as a normal layer. And I'm just going to go to Image Adjustments, Black and White. I want the yellow in my hay to stand out a little bit, maybe not quite that much. And I want this sky to go dark. To be really a dramatic sky. I can take it all the way to black if I want, but I don't want to get that crazy with it. I just want it a little darker. So there is this layer, and let's see what it looked like when I just did just dropped the tonal colors. You see the differences both in the tumbleweeds and in the sky. So by building a little bit of false color and then using black and white layer, we now can control all of the tones based on their color. Incredibly powerful. There's no way to do anything quite like this in film. So there's my basic grayscale conversion. I'll come back for part 3 and we'll talk about how might we tone this. What can we do if we wanted to make this look maybe a little more sepia toned, maybe a little old-timey. But for right now, this will be it. See you in part 3.